I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. Christianity is fake. Christianity is fake. Christianity is fake. Christianity is fake.
In the words of a very wise man, all right, let's see it.
It was created as a political movement.
Okay, so interesting first premise. Hold on. Step 1, though. Citation. Step 2. Okay, how does that make Christianity fake? You haven't really defined what fake means yet, so I don't know exactly where it is you're trying to go with this point. I also don't know if you realize that by saying that, you've actually invalidated all religion, because all religion is political, including Roman polytheism, including Norse polytheism, including pretty much any kind of religious system that existed in the time period where Christianity was popping up.
It's also the reason why the Roman Empire has fallen.
I don't know if you know this, girlie, but right away, if we're going to be talking about how to argue, these premises do not support this conclusion.
I'm in college, and I'm taking medieval history, and everything is being laid out on the table.
So that right there is an appeal to ethos, and the problem with that is that you're saying that you're in college, as if this means anything. Secondly, saying you're taking medieval history. Okay, here's the problem with this, though. Your medieval history is already starting in the wrong spot to be telling anyone about whether or not Christianity is fake, because by the time we approach where you were in the focus of your studies, Christianity has already been around for a solid 400 years. So define fake. So by this point in the video, we can't go over all of it, but Girlie's saying that, yeah, the Roman Empire started to fall apart. Was it because of Christianity? No, according to her own words, it's because Constantine could not handle the breadth of the empire. It splintered into two pieces, the Byzantine and the Western part, the more Roman European kind of Catholic part. So you've already defeated your second premise. Great, because I do bring citations. The Christian era of the Roman Empire began in 312 AD, or CE. This is centuries after Christianity started as some weird little offshoot of...
The original teachings, the original teachings were done in the idea of pagan thinkers, pagan leaders, pagan people.
What do you mean it was... Girl, what do you mean it was all from Greek pagans? Back up for a minute. Let me explain the point you're trying to make for you, okay? If you want to talk about the fact that there is absolutely some Greek philosophy going on in the information of how Christianity was interpreted, yes, this is true. And we see a lot of this actually in John Temple Bristow's What Paul Really Said About Women. The problem, however, wasn't that Christianity was based on these ideals. It was that Roman Gentile converts to the religion continued to interpret the words of people like Paul in the lens of philosophers who were hardcore misogynists, like Aristotle, like Zeno, like all of these other ones that really weren't cool. So when we have things being like, oh, women were under the man, like, I don't know, your really bad ex Adam over there.
Back in the day, I dated a Bible thumper. His name was Adam. Ironic, right? It was traditional to the fucking core. I mean, women are beneath the whole thing.
You can actually thank the pagan philosophers for that, not Christianity, ironically.
Now, monasteries and monarchs were most effective because they gave this idea that Christianity would provide security, hope, and sustenance during the hard times where their original religion, the tribes, the people, their original culture would not provide that.
Moreover, hold on, Premise 3, Christianity posits itself as something that's going to help people in hard times. Okay, hey, you want to know what's special about this, girlfriend? That's what all religion did. That is quite literally the function of all religion. In fact, you want to talk about something really interesting? Something really, really cool that actually you'd probably really like this book if you picked it up. The Epicurean theory of atoms. was really, really interesting because it was quite literally the first time people said, what if the world is actually made of all of these tiny little particles instead of, like being made by the gods? And in fact, actually, what if all these natural disasters aren't because of the fury of the gods at all, but just because of that being how nature works? There's no reason to do any kind of sacrifices or anything at all if that's the case, effectively blowing the need for all religion right out of the water. You might very well guess that it was Christians like St. Augustine who really didn't like that because it made people less afraid of hellfire. Absolutely. Trust me, when I say that there's reasons to criticize Christianity, there are, and I don't disagree with you about the urge to do that. My question is only, what do you mean by this, and how are you going to prove it with these premises that are non-sequiturs to your point?
And the rich had no issue with this because only the elite and the most rich were able to enter the church and take money from the church.
Okay, hold on. This one requires a big fucking citation, girly. What are we talking about here? If you want to get specific about it, in fact, when Constantine rose up, he certainly gave churches and bishops a lot of money. He certainly did that. But to say that the rich people were totally fine with this new rise of Christianity is patently false. There were many people who were not about this and were very upset that they kind of couldn't do their traditions anymore, the Senate and everything else. I mean, both of these books together will give you a great overview of what the Romans were thinking at the time of the rise of Christianity, and it wasn't really great. The rich certainly weren't like, oh yeah, cool, I'll happily abandon my gods for the sake of some coin. That's not what happened.
Anytime that a new translation comes through for the Bible, it is just something to reform the rules, the ethics, the outline, to further that control.
Hold on. Again, fat ass citation needed, girl. I can tell you a few reasons why many Bible translations happened. There are several reasons, in fact. And if you've ever read this book, you'll know that a lot of times it's because, genuinely, people just fucked up copying them. The Gutenberg printing press wouldn't come around until about the tail end of this medieval era you're currently studying, and until then, people had to painstakingly copy a bunch of manuscripts by hand, and that really sucked. That sucked a lot when you were an old dude who was barely literate in the first place because most Christians came from the background of the actually very poor and uneducated, TBH. So when you were copying down all these manuscripts and stuff, barely really sure what the hell's going on, not really sure why the story ends this way, so you kind of added a little something to make it make more narrative sense to you, so on and so forth. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of different editions. You're gonna have a lot of different editions. Moreover, over time, right, as you so eloquently mentioned, how religion and politics kind of go like this a lot, different kings in different nations and different churches are gonna start doing their own thing, like the KJV, done by King James. Hence the name of the King James Version. Going around making all these very different kinds of interesting interpretations and edits to an otherwise very easily established document already by that time. Moreover, you also have other groups who said, you know what, the Bible shouldn't only be in Latin anymore, we should all be able to read it in our own language, and so you have a bajillion and two different versions of the Bible coming up for that sake. In fact, moje ľudia, my people, the Slovenians, one of the primary reasons our language survived and didn't get washed away under the occupation of the Austrians, the Habsburgs, was because the Bible was translated by Primož Trubar into Slovenian. So control? Maybe sometimes, but not always. In fact, not even most of the times. Moreover, when we have these kinds of study Bibles, new editions are made because they're trying to be more readable. This one especially puts it in plain modern English so that it's easier for people to digest, and also has a fair amount of footnotes on the side. And to be clear, this is the Jewish Bible, which means it's what Christians would call the Old Testament, because believe it or not, Christianity came from somewhere, and it wasn't paganism. Let's stop being anti-Semitic and erasing Jewish people. Thank you. And in fact, the entire argument about, but even Judaism came from somewhere else. Yes, because contrary to popular belief, religions are not made in a vacuum. Religions don't spawn from nowhere. They come from people having different interpretations of the freaking cultural religions they're already dealing with at the time. The God of Abraham came out of the Canaanite pantheon. A group of people gathered around one God and decided that was going to be the one. Merged it with the chief pantheon deity El. There you go. Like, this is how all religion functions, and that includes polytheistic religions. Or do you think there is some kind of special coincidence with all of these different deities in Roman polytheism, like Serapis, who are very clearly a conjunction of Zeus and Osiris, two completely separate gods of completely separate cultures? I'm not seeing any proof of this, because if your main proof of this is that it's all about politics, again, I'm here to tell you, girlie, that's how it always was. Religion was quite literally always a means of controlling a populace, especially a diverse populace. Again, to bring this up, this one cites how Alexander the Great wanted that great Alexandrian library full of all different religious texts because, and I quote, from page 138, this is what citing your work looks like, by the way, Alexander's firmly held belief that to govern a people you needed to understand them. And who could hope to understand a people unless you knew what they worshipped? Understand that and you understood their souls. Understand a nation's soul and you could control it. Vast efforts were made with religious texts. 2 million lines of verse, said to be by the ancient Iranian prophet Zoroaster, were translated. The very first translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek was, according to legend, made here in the 3rd century BC. All religion is fake, I guess, is the new thesis? Is that what we have to do? What's going on here?
Oh, I took notes, honey.
Me too, girlie, and guess what? You got problems, because all of a sudden you start going into a lot of non sequitur about St. Benedict and Pope Gregory, saying that Pope Gregory was a nationalist. I don't really... What does this mean in the context of his reign, which was about 590 to 604 CE? What is the context of nationalist here? Because, you know, I don't, like, have a million volumes of history, but I did do a brief little look at Pope Gregory, and what I'm seeing is that he was having a big bunch of to do with the Lombards and with the East, and, like, a whole bunch of other kinds of stuff that was, like, really annoying and problematic. So, is that what you mean by nationalist? He also had some hand in helping, like, the Germanic tribes, like the Frankish tribes, convert, which would come back to bite Moya Ludia, my people, in the ass when fucking Charlemagne inevitably came and took over our lands, but whatever. But again, we just false statement after false statement. Pope Gregory's not out here purposely rewriting the Bible to make it a more fear-mongering masterpiece. He's out here doing a lot of philosophical work. He's the one that kind of solidified the concept of 7 deadly sins, but none of these dots are connecting right now. Like, none of these premises are supporting your conclusion. Even a little bit. Not even a little bit. As we get towards the end of this, I'm still failing to see a connection between your thesis and any of the things you've brought up. Because you haven't defined what this means. You haven't defined what this means. And it seems that you're not going to. Because if you do, as I said, you actually invalidate all religion. Now, towards the end, we get a weird move here. We get one of these.
First of all, your ancestors, the tribes and the cultures that they come from would not appreciate this.
We get a pathos appeal. We're appealing to the fact that, oh my goodness, your ancestors wouldn't like that you were in this. However, girlie, you say that you and your family are pagan, but I hate to break it to you, but that is not an unbroken line of pagans. At least I'm willing to bet so. Because what we now understand as paganism is neopaganism, is a reconstructionist movement, largely based on what we know from our own archaeology and our own studies on these sites, and also a lot of records by Christian monks who were studying this stuff. A lot of our neo-pagan stuff is inherently filtered through a Christian lens. More than that, there is a period where all of Europe is Christian. And that period is about 1,000 years long. There is going to be a part where some of your ancestors, yours or anyone else watching this, is going to be Christian, not because they've been coerced anymore, but because they genuinely believe it. And there are going to be many of our ancestors who would really, really not like the idea that we would turn away from Christianity. So first of all, this appeal falls flat just on basis of fact. But second of all, this appeal has, again, nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with this. And you know what, girlie? I'll back you up on a couple things. There's some things you say that aren't wrong. Again, you should read this book if you really want a proper reason to be annoyed with Christianity. Because there is a ton of this going on. There's a ton of violence, there's a ton of aggression, there's a ton of really shitty behavior coming from Christians. Why? Well, first of all, largely because a lot of these converts, and I hate to break this to you, but a lot of these converts are previously Roman Gentiles. More than that, they are especially the lower classes of Roman Gentiles, the disenfranchised, the uneducated, the women and the slaves, all of these kinds of people that Roman society has thrown out. And we can see in the history of Christianity over and over and over again that this is how Christianity spreads, by getting a foothold in those who have been disenfranchised and encouraging the disenfranchised to turn in revolt and subvert the social order against the established way. We could see this also, say, in Japan. When Christianity first touched down there, the Japanese government at the time was very, very shrewd in killing all those missionaries immediately, because they saw exactly what those Christians were doing, which was whispering into the ears of the uneducated and the poor to try and get them to basically coup the whole ass system. And the emperor said, absolutely fucking not on my watch. What comes in here is actually, ironically, not Christian values in the spread of Christianity, but a big sign of the people who are already steeped in the culture of the time and who were extremely bitter about their lot in life at the time, I would say as well, taking a new excuse to spit in the face of everything that has ever disenfranchise them. And we can see that by how other people are describing Christians as not holy men of honor as they destroy all these temples and melt down all this gold and use it for other things, but in fact as loud frauds, marauders, thieves, hooligans, and everything else. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the destructive and horrible spread of Christianity, but it's not because of Christianity. It's absolutely a symptom of Roman culture and Roman repression. Because again, Roman religion too was really not so cute and darling and sweet. It was very much a thing where you would sacrifice to the gods and also to the emperor, or you would be put to death, right? This was something that was needed to maintain the social well-being of the city. Everyone had to give proper sacrifice to these gods. Everyone had to follow these rules, or else big fucking plagues and floods and other shit would come and wipe everyone out. This has always been the modus operandi of all religion. So when you make a claim like no other religion ever used fear and stuff like this, no, they did. They absolutely did. There would not be a reason to even engage with any of this stuff if people were not afraid that they would anger the gods and suffer immeasurably for it. This is, if we want to take a more agnostic and scholarly approach to it, this is humanity not being able to explain the world around them and therefore kind of doing very kind of compulsive ritual around it. And if people did not comply with this compulsive ritual setting, they were killed because they were a threat to the very fragile balance that these people were trying to set up with these sacrifices, with these rites, with these celebrations, and with everything else. Hold on, moreover in this, right? So you make this point.
I do have a question though, right? If you have a new translation to the Bible and something was added that you used to do, which is now forbidden, does that mean that you have to repent for your new sins? Or if something was removed as a sin and now it's okay, does that mean that you're going to go do it, or are you going to morph yourself as your religion morphs?
And the answer actually is yes. Yes. That's what you do when you get new information. When you get new information, you update your understanding of your own religion. If you were being an asshole to gay people under a faulty understanding of gayness being a sin from shitty Bible translations, and now we have the scholarly facts that actually that's not what the Bible is talking about, yes, you have to repent. If we have evidence now that women were always preaching and speaking and doing their thing, and that this should be allowed, yes, you update accordingly, and you allow women into the pulpit. Our religion is a living religion. It is constantly being updated with new ideas, new facts, new things we are discovering from archaeologically, anthropology, from just scholarly understanding of the language of the text as much as we can. We're always learning more about this. So are we also learning more about Greek religion, Norse religion, any other kind of religion. They're still alive. And they're always being renegotiated so that we can make sense of them and take their core components and apply them in a modern era that has nothing to do with the era it was originally written in. That's how you religion. Like that. What? No. Okay, no. I've seen what I needed to see. Girly, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. Girly, you are a full deep in the Dunning-Krueger effect. Okay? It's the Dunning-Krueger effect. The Dunning-Krueger effect is what happens when people start learning about something. What happens is, when we don't know anything, we don't have a lot of confidence. But as we learn a little, we suddenly get a lot of confidence. And then as we learn more, we realize, oh shit, there's more to this story than I thought. Girly, right now you are all up in here. You are all up in here. You do not have that much knowledge, but you sure are talking like you do. And the thing is, this is why when you say, I'm in college, I'm taking a class, I had to giggle. Because I am certainly not qualified to give out official diagnoses to people because I took one Psych 101 class, right? Likewise, girl, you do not have the qualifications, the knowledge, the nothing to be going on like this and spreading this kind of misinformation. So to end this whole spiel, this whole rigmarole, let me say very clearly, if you want to criticize Christianity, oh yeah, by all means. Like, there's definitely reason to criticize how, like, the institution of Christianity, and to push back on it, and to get people to understand that, yeah, at its core, it's done a lot of nasty stuff, and it's built that way by design. We absolutely can draw a lot of parallels to the way it started and the way things are still going today. However, if you're going to criticize it, you have to criticize it accurately. You have to make sense. Your premises, you want to talk about Greeks? Your premises have to line up to your conclusion. We want to talk about Greeks in philosophy. We have to talk about the fact that they're the ones that gave us how to argue, and you are not arguing efficiently. Your premises do not support your conclusion. You have an invalid argument here. Therefore, go back to the drawing table, define what you mean by fake. What does this mean? And then try to actually make points that directly relate to it, not things that are all over the place and just prove why Christianity as an institution has done damage. That's a separate argument, that's a separate conversation, and that's not what we're here to talk about. You had one thing to prove, you did not prove it. So what do I give this argument? Girly, no citations, no nothing, but you do a lot of this.
Proofs and facts cannot be argued.
Which, okay, sure, yeah, the facts and proofs can't be debated, but the way you connect the dots certainly can, and where you got them from certainly can. So, no. You need to back up your work with real sources. You need to actually support your argument with claims that are related to your argument. And you need to be able to understand your own bias in the situation. Second of all, like, okay, I understand. Like, you give your bias away loud and clear.
Born pagan. I was raised pagan. My family is pagan. We don't like yours.
Okay, sure, and like that's fine, that's valid, but at the same time you gotta probably also understand that that might be informing why this argument is so all over the place and so frenzied and so just unfollowable. Like, I as a Christian am here with you all day if you want to talk about why Christianity as an institution has been a hot mess and why it's done a lot of damage and why it's destroyed so much of our human history. Yeah, but again, if you're going to be a hater, hate correctly, please. Because none of this was good, and yet you've got thousands of people looking at that video thinking that's a good idea of what it means to make an argument, thinking that's a good idea of facts, trying to get people to trust you based on what is honestly not a very long list of credentials. Girly, that's irresponsible. That's not good. Don't do that. If you're going to say things, you need to actually understand what you're saying, and then you need to back it up appropriately. This is a mess. If I were you, I would take this video down, but you won't, I know.